thought is, are the Dolphins making the right move in playing Tua? Is it time? Is it the right timing for Tua time in Miami? To me, honestly surprising, I'm kind of surprised myself here. The answer is yes. And more surprising, I'm actually shocked about how much pushback, how much blowback Brian Flores and the Dolphins are getting for making this decision now. Because listening to what Brian Flores has said really since the jump, right? Really since the beginning when they drafted Tua. They're taking their time. A few weeks ago, talked about why he's being cautious with Tua, basically treating him as his own son. He wouldn't want, if Tua was his son, his head coach rushing him to play coming off the hip injury, as we know. But to me, so far, listening to what Brian Flores has said, seeing how they've handled the situation, Flores and the Dolphins are playing Tua for the right reasons. It's not media pressure related. Brian Flores is not trying to save his job because no matter if they go, they're 3-3 now. If they lose every single game and go 3-13, he's coming back next year. There's never about making the playoffs or bust. So he's not trying to save his job. He's not playing Tua because of media pressure or fan pressure or even ownership pressure. We've seen that before. There's no angst. There's no consternation from Brian Flores himself to try to get Tua on the field and rush him before it's too, I guess, rush him on the field when he's not ready. He's playing Tua because Tua earned the right to be the starter. Here's Brian Flores yesterday basically explaining what went into the reasoning, what went into the logic of starting Tua Tagavailoa next week.
Practice, we talked about it as a staff, personnel department. We just felt like it was the best move for the team right now. And, that's how we're going to move forward.
Practice, talking about it with the team, thinking it's the right move for the team right now to give them the best chance of winning. And I agree, because I think Brian Flores has handled the situation perfectly so far. He's let Tua develop in practice. He's learning the speed of the game. And he's kept him in practice really until he's until he's ready to make the jump into the real game, to the regular season. Tua's development was obviously hurt by the lack of offseason, the normal offseason, no OTAs, no training camp is there, but it's not real, not a usual training camp. Obviously, there's no preseason games to kind of get your feet wet. So he's had to basically show off in practice and play the best that he has in practice. And so far, according to Brian Flores, I'll explain a little bit what some Dolphins players said. It sounds like Tua has been really impressing in practice. Here's Brian Flores again.
We talk about kind of situations like this on a weekly basis. He's day-to-day. He's, going to be back in a couple weeks. And this is no different than that. And, we feel like, through practice and meetings and walkthroughs, that he's ready. And that's how we're going to go moving forward.
We feel like through practice and meetings and walkthroughs that he is ready. He is impressing. He has a knowledge of the playbook. He's making the plays. So it sounds like to me, this is the decision that Brian Flores really didn't have to make. He didn't really have a choice in making, I should say. Because Tua in practice demonstrated to the team, to Flores, to the entire organization, he is ready to play. He is ready to go. It's time. And that's the way, honestly, it should be. We always think that the NFL and professional sports is meritocracy, right? The best players play. That's not the case. That's not the case more times than not. Contracts have something to do with it. Money usually has always something to do with it. Players in the doghouse or not has something to do with it. It's not a guarantee that every single time the best players are going to play week in and week out. There's all these other exterior motivations, all these other factors that come into why some players play more than others. And even, you read some reports from ESPN, there's plenty of Dolphins players that are talking to ESPN saying that they have noticed Tua's improvement in practice. It's been very noticeable in the past few weeks. So it's not something where he is forced to being played now. He hasn't earned the job. So Dolphins are playing some good football right now. They're 3-3. Ryan Fitzpatrick has two of the better games of his season in blowing out the San Francisco 49ers on the road last week, dominating the Jets this past week. It's easy to kind of get lost in the sauce, we'll say, right? It's easy to kind of get caught up in the moment, look at your record, say, we're 3-3. Maybe we didn't expect to be 3-3 right now. Ryan Fitzpatrick's playing really good. Maybe let's see if we can ride this. Maybe let's see if we can make a desperate attempt to make the playoffs. We're going to hold off on Tua, despite the fact that he's playing really well in practice so far, despite the fact that he is our future. He is the organization. Let's not forget. Ryan Fitzpatrick knows he's a placeholder. He's said it plenty of times before. He is playing until Tua is ready. The goal was never to bring Ryan Fitzpatrick in to make a postseason run, to make a playoff run. So I love the fact that Brian Flores isn't sacrificing the future at a long shot, at an improbability of making the playoffs. Because right now, again, they are in second place in the AFC East. The AFC, really the NFC too, it's wide open. The Bills have shown some vulnerabilities. The Patriots are struggling. Really, there's not many teams outside the Chiefs right now that are really dominating the AFC. So there's a chance there, especially with the extra playoff spot this year. The Dolphins wanted to try to make a run. They could. But Brian Flores isn't falling into the trap. He's not doing what Ron Rivera is doing right now, losing sight of the future. And that's figuring out what you have in Dwayne Haskins. Figuring out if he can be the guy moving forward, or you have to draft another quarterback next year. Instead, Ron Rivera is trying to make a desperate run, an improbable run, because the NFC East is so bad. And I think that sacrificing the future for the present, to me, is very short-sighted and is not a winning philosophy. So yeah, it's tough to bench a guy in Ryan Fitzpatrick, who is so well-liked in the locker room, who's playing some of his best football right now. It's not like Ryan Fitzpatrick just threw 5 interceptions the last 2 games was the reason why the Dolphins lost 2 in a row, and just an easier-to-digest move that makes sense to put Tua in. He is benching Ryan Fitzpatrick when Ryan Fitzpatrick is playing at his best. It's not easy. Brian Flores said it's not easy. But hearing Flores talk about Tua impressing in practice, hearing Dolphins players tell ESPN that they've really noticed Tua's improvement over the past few weeks in practice, to me it sounds like there's no choice there. There's no option. Tua's playing too well. He's playing too good to the fact that you couldn't play him. And that's how you keep players playing hard for you. That's how you keep the system of buying in. And that's how Brian Flores, so far through a season and a half, despite the record, despite the talent, that's why the Dolphins are a pesky team. That's why the Dolphins have legitimate buy-in. When they were tearing it down 6 games through last year, when they looked like one of the worst teams in football history, not just of last year, they were losing at historical records. Whether it was point differential, whether it was just lack of offensive scoring, their defense was giving up points left and right. That team bought in, they turned it around. Part of that buy-in is making the best decision for the team. Making the tough decision, but you know it's the right thing for the team. To me, that's what this decision is. Starting Tua right now, to me, is the best decision for this team going forward. Knowing what we know through 2 games, who will win the World Series? Who has the edge here going in Game 3 and beyond? To me, I think it's the Rays. I think the Tampa Bay Rays, 5 games left going through the rest of this World Series, have the edge, have the advantage to win. And I'll tell you why. Finally. Now, it took all postseason. Hopefully, if you're a Rays fan, this is not just a flash in the pan. This is not just a one-off. But the biggest area that they've struggled in the entire postseason so far, offense, right? Scoring runs, getting runners on, getting runners in. They did that yesterday and did it well. Because they've really been below average offensively, really this entire postseason. Starting really with that Yankees series that went 5. The Astros series we saw was hot and cold. They played really well the first 3 games, then sunk the middle 3 games before turning on in Game 7. Their offense has been the one inconsistency, really, throughout the direction of the playoffs so far. And last night, it came alive. And really, more importantly, not only did it come alive, it came alive with some of their best players that have been struggling offensively so far. Brandon Lau, their best hitter this season in the regular season, has been just ice cold in the playoffs. Last night for Brandon Lau, 2 hits, both home runs. He drove in 3. Huge to kind of see the ball go out of the park, really get that confidence going. Joey Wendell, another guy who's a great hitter for the Rays in the regular season, has been pretty quiet through the postseason. 3 RBIs last night. So yeah, Lau and Wendell, really the 2 players that the Rays needed to get going the most, driving all 6 runs combined last night. Manny Margot, 3 times on base yesterday. That's what the Rays need. That's what they were desperate for all the postseason. They finally got it going yesterday. But like I said, is it a one-off? They struggled the entire postseason. Now 1 game. Now granted, a massive time, but 1 game. They played well in Game 2 last night. It's hard to extrapolate that performance throughout the rest of the series. But this is why I think the Rays have the advantage going forward. This is why I think that they will continue to have more offensive success. They are able, and they have in Game 2, were able to take care really of the one Dodger weakness on this team. And that's been their bullpen. And it wasn't even a glaring weakness in the regular season because their bullpen actually was, I think, the second best ERA-wise in all of baseball. But the postseason, that's been different. The bullpen postseason ERA so far for the Dodgers is 3.80. A full run worse, right, or higher, depending on how you want to look at it, but either way, it's the same thing, than the regular season where they were 2.74. So again, the second best bullpen in the regular season 2.74 ERA. Now is ballooned to 3.80. And now they're one of the worst bullpens in baseball, in the postseason at least. And guess what? With the way the trends are going in baseball, with the way baseball is managed, the Tampa Bay Rays are going to see more of the Dodger bullpen than less. Now, they have Walker Buehler going on Friday for the Dodgers. Their ace, their guy. Expect them to dominate. Okay, fine. But whether it's Clayton Kershaw getting back on the bump, they're going to start Julio Urias in Game 4. If Tampa can get in that bullpen and get it in early, they are favored to win this series. Because really, as a Mets fan, I can relate it to this. Can't really relate to watching much of my teams in the World Series, but I can relate it because the Mets were in the World Series back in 2015. And this, to me, if I was a Dodgers fan, what I'd be concerned about. Because this is really what haunted me as a Mets fan. When the Mets played the Royals in 2015, the one thing about the Royals was their starting rotation was iffy. It was all right. But their bullpen was elite. It was locked down. So it was one of those things where you want to knock around the starting pitcher. You want to get into the bullpen early. But at the same time, getting to the bullpen early was playing to the Royals' strength. They would bring in guy after guy after guy who would throw hard, get strikeouts, and the Mets' offense was lifeless. That's sort of what I see here with the Rays. Now I think they're starting pitching with Blake Snell. With Blake Snell. With Charlie Morton. I think it's better than what the Royals had in 2015. But that bullpen is similar. Where you bring in guy after guy after guy, they're throwing hard, they have nasty stuff, and it's just wave after wave after wave of dominant pitching. So if you're going to see more of bullpens, more bullpen innings, to me that favors the Rays. And that's the way this game is trending. So yes, Clayton Kershaw pitched well in Game 1. Kind of, brush off some of that postseason horror that he has been. Let's see him do it again. I want to see him do it again. One outing in Game 1 doesn't convince me that all of a sudden now he's kind of fixed this postseason jinx that he's been. So you can get him, you rough him up, get him out early, get into that bullpen. You're going to see at least one more bullpen game, probably in Game 6. That favors the Rays. And guess what? They're one of those teams where they don't score a lot of runs, as I just mentioned, right? Outside of yesterday, their offense has been struggling mightily. But what they do really well, what they are a lead at, is that once they get that lead, if they can get it early, they don't give it up. Again, that bullpen is so elite, that's so good, they shut it down. This year, regular season and postseason, the Rays, when they score first, are 32-7. When they score first, that's it. They get a 1-0 lead. More times than not, the game's over. They're the best in baseball when they score first. That's a testament to their pitching. That's a testament to their bullpen. So as we see the series go deeper, as we see bullpens get more and more relied upon, because that's how baseball is managed, to me that favors the Rays. And that's why I'm picking the Rays to close out this World Series. I think they'll get it done. I think they'll beat the Dodgers. So I'm taking the Rays. I'm curious your thoughts here. Watching the World Series, seeing what we saw so far, where are you leaning? Which way are you taking? We're even at 1. So essentially, it's still a clean slate, we'll say. So despite the fact that we're trying to preview and discuss the World Series and give predictions after 2 games, being even, I think we could still do it. We can get by. We'll squeeze by. So I'm curious your thoughts. If you're watching the World Series, if you're into it, who do you think will win the World Series? I'm taking the Rays. I'll go in 7. Have it go the distance because you know what? The Rays have played every series to the distance so far, so why not make it the World Series as well? But I think the Rays, as the bullpens get more and more relied upon, more and more used, that favors Tampa Bay. So curious your thoughts. Facebook, Worldwide Sports Network, Twitter, WWSR_radio. And Ryan Hickey Show also on Twitter. Who do you have winning the World Series? Is this the year finally the Dodgers get over the hump? They've signed Mookie Betts to an already star-studded lineup. Clayton Kershaw's pitching really well. Walker Buehler, again, is the ace of the staff. This is a bullpen that still has talent. Second best bullpen in all of baseball in the regular season. Has been able to figure it out a little bit in the postseason. But there's still talent there. Will they figure it out when they get it together?